As the federal government prepares to present the 2025 appropriation bill valued at 47.96 trillion naira, the attention turns to the implementation of the 2024 budget. Themed Budget of Renewed Hope, the 2024 budget designed to revitalize the economy, outlined a total expenditure of 27.5 trillion naira with a projected revenue of 18.32 trillion naira. Top priorities were defense, job creation, macroeconomic stability, improved investment environment, poverty reduction, and social security. The budget also prioritized debt servicing, allocating 30% towards it, while critical sectors like education and health received 7.9% and 5% respectively. However, the budget implementation has been marked by challenges, including a deficit of 9.18 trillion naira, which has put a pressure on the government's finances. Against this backdrop, the 2025 budget is expected to address these challenges and build on the progress made so far, as it is set to increase by 15 trillion naira. Well, to provide more insights into the 2024 budget implementation and the proposed 2025 budget, I'm joined by Dr. Niyi Akinsiju, a renowned development economist. Always a pleasure to have you on the program, sir.
Thanks so much. It's a privilege to be here.
Before we delve into the details of the 2025 proposed appropriation bill, what is your opinion of the implementation of the 2024 budget so far?
Well, so far so good, to the extent that the recurrent leg, of the recurrent side of the 2024 Appropriation Act is still being implemented as appropriate. The assumption actually is that the recurrent side of the budget is usually implemented 100%, because that is what attend to salaries, wages, pensions, allowances, and all that. So the major concern would be to what extent are the capital side, of the budget implemented. And by the way, we need to also put it properly to note that we have a supplementary budget during the year, a total of 28.77 trillion was first budgeted for and appropriated, signed into law by the president in January 2024. And by July, a supplementary budget was also approved by the National Assembly, I think up to 6.2 trillion. That budget had a component of 3.2 trillion for capital expenditure and 3 trillion for recurrent expenditure. It actually directly addressed the issues of the new minimum wage, that was not part of the initial 2024 budget. So essentially, what that comes to actually is that you had a lower percentage of budgetary allocation to capital expenditure, which most of us, usually stand by, because that is the aspect of the budget that usually impact the totality of the Nigerian people. That's the aspect of the budget that provides roads. It's the aspect of the budget that enhances power supply. Part of the budget that you are sure that transportation will be available and all that. So when you have a lower percentage of the budget committed to capital expenditure, there's a little worry. Now, if you're in 2024, the largest single item, budgetary allocation was for debt servicing at 8.2 trillion thereabouts. And then you now have infrastructure and power and all that at 1.9. That's at the 1.9 trillion. Education had 2.03 trillion. Health had 1.4 trillion. So when you are talking about sectoral allocation, you really are not too excited, because again, you you have this low allocation to these sectors that are supposed to be critical in the development of the country. But thankfully, I think with the changing model that we are having now, and that is what is reflecting in the 2025 budget as proposed. Now, from 18.3 trillion total revenue projected, we are talking now for 2025 with 0.6 trillion thereabout revenue projected in 2025. So it does mean that there's a quantum leap in the thinking of projected revenue. And I am expecting, of course, that there will be a higher allocation, to capital expenditure in the 2025 budget as soon as that will be soon revealed or unveiled in the National Assembly by the President.
All right. The 2025 budget shows a significant increase of 15 trillion naira from the previous budget. What factors do you think contributed to this substantial growth? Is it a result of increased revenue projections, or are there other underlying factors at play?
Well, mainly increased revenue projection. Don't forget that there had been a huge savings in the area of subsidy, which is the most troublesome aspect of our national economic existence. But the truth of it is that savings from subsidy had actually enhanced revenue flow into the coffers of the federal government. And of course, again, the exchange, we've been seeing huge leap in capital, or rather revenue allocation and sharing by FAC every month now. The November sharing, the November FAC 2024 revenue sharing was immensely impressive. A total revenue generated at 3.14 trillion. And we have that is a record, 3.14 trillion. After all deductions, 1.7 trillion was shared amongst the three tiers of government. Now, what this tells us is that there had been a larger fiscal space with this enhanced and increased revenue generated and being shared by the three tiers of government. So going forward, I believe that the projected revenue to fund the 2025 budget will not be restricted, will not be inhibited. If we look at the benchmark proposal, especially for the crude oil, which is actually 90% of our envisioned earning, it's at $75. I think, despite the fears of some people that with the coming of President Trump in America, there will be a pressure. There will be pressure on pricing of crude oil. I believe that $75, it's the commercial rate even for American oil producers. So if that is constant, and we are able to move from the 1.8 million barrels per day that we have achieved in crude oil production, we should be able, over the next 2 to 3 months, achieve 2.06 million barrels that is projected in the 2025 budget. So the 34.6 trillion revenue that is projected in the 2025 budget, I think is achievable. The achievement of it is important because over the last 6, 7, even 8 years, we have been underperforming in terms of revenue expectations and the real, the projected revenue and the real revenue accomplished. So if we are able to accomplish 34.6 trillion revenue, as it were, I believe that the budget will be properly implemented because the deficit of 13.13 trillion that is also projected in the budget, I know that the Nigerian capital markets, debt markets as it were, it's actually strong enough to provide that bridge. So it's accomplishing the revenue that is the challenge. But I think with what we have now, savings on fuel subsidy, enhanced earnings from we are talking of foreign exchange gains now, and we are not subsidizing so much of that. We would be able to accomplish that, and I believe that even the 47 trillion, as it were, is not exactly too huge as people would want to believe. It is time we start spending big. Nigeria is a huge jurisdiction. And we have huge needs. So the need for us, especially now that the fuel subsidy had been withdrawn, is to provide momentum in terms of capital implementation, capital project implementation that will impact virtually everybody across the country.
Great. The 2024 budget had a deficit of 9.18 trillion naira, which led to the federal government securing a 2.2 billion euro bond to settle the budget deficit. What's your take on this development?
Well, it's stated, it's not a new development. The 2.2 billion euro bond was part of the budgetary commitment, to addressing the deficit inherent in that in the 2024 budget. It's so talking of 9 trillion deficit. The $2.2 billion is a percentage of that. The remaining side of the remaining side of the deficits is being funded by domestic investors who are buying bonds and treasury bills, federal government bonds and treasury bills. So to a large extent, I think the truth of the matter is that the Eurobond has shown global confidence in the Nigerian economy. Don't forget that we went seeking for $2.2 billion. The global investor decided to give us 9 billion. That the debt the debt raising was oversubscribed by more than $7 billion. So that shows global confidence. What I will hope is that one way or the other, those investors that rushed, as it were, our Eurobond will also find a way of directing or channeling their funds into the Nigerian economy directly, since they cannot access the 2.2 billion. To a large extent, our domestic market is very strong, very vibrant, and can provide huge sums of money to bridge our deficit, as it were. So going forward, we will still, even in 2025, we'll still be doing a lot of capital raising to bridge the deficits. But the important thing is that, are we spending the loans? Are we spending the debt the way it should be spent? I think so far so good. We are spending it. We are not spending on subsidy. We are not spending on subsidizing foreign exchange transaction. We are spending on infrastructure, on capital projects, and capital projects are supposed to have capacity to pay back, even from conceptualization of the projects that would be funded.
All right. Just before I let you go, what's your outlook on the Nigerian economy in 2025?
Well, I must confess that I used to be a rabid socialist. I appreciated the social aspect of economy, but the truth of the matter is when resources are scarce, the only way you can actually allocate resources effectively and efficiently is to, of course, adopt the open free market economy. And I see that is that's where the Nigerian economy is trending to. Let every participant, let every agent in that economy, and when I say agent, individual, be economically active. And to that extent, it is about receiving and also giving in an open, transparent manner. And that is why we are seeing our fiscal space becoming so big, that we are moving from 28 or 36, if we look at the supplementary budget, to 47. So I believe that the Nigerian economy, now trending on the open market, free market economic model, will become more buoyant and more vibrant.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Akinsiju, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Pleasure as always. Thanks for having me.
Right. Moving on.